Hey guys, Handyman 406 here. My name's Kerry. Wanted to show you this. Been wanting to do this video for some time, and so I bought a couple of these recently. Actually, I have a total of about 5 of these now, and but 2 brand new ones. And I got one in the well that's working. The other 2 are kind of for parts. Those are the ones that I've used over the years. Now I've been running these things for about 8 years. Okay, and I managed to get about 2 years out of each one before they just, when they quit, they eventually just pump less and less. These things are only 75 bucks, folks. They go under several names. This one's under Eco-Worthy. I've seen them under Seaflow, kind of like the brand name SureFlow, kind of a little take on that. And anyways, these are fantastic little pumps. I wouldn't recommend running them on 12 volt. They claim they'll pump 250 feet. I'm pretty close to that right now with my depth of my well is 80 feet. And I'll pump it up into the 3rd story of my house in a pressure tank. Okay, so I don't know how many feet that equals up to, but I'm running about 40 psi. What's that? 2 feet per 2, I don't know, 1 psi per 2 feet or something like that. 2 feet per psi, approximately. So that'd give me about 80 additional feet. So I'm running about 160, 180 feet, close to 200 feet almost. And these things have performed really good for me. I use a lot of water in the summertime when I'm watering my garden. And so these things really get a workout. And if you use less water than I do, you probably get a lot more out of them. The nice thing about these is you can lower them down in the well by hand. You don't need any special equipment to pull them out because you're only putting 1/2-inch pecks on these things. The pecks won't fit on this. What I do is I take a piece of poly and I'll just hose clamp it here. I'll put a poly fitting with a threaded fitting. I thread that into my check valve, and on the end of the check valve I'll put my pecks, and I run the pecks all the way up to the top of the wellhead, and that just allows me to just pull that right out by hand, no problem. And these things only pump a gallon a minute, so there's not really a need for a large pipe. So the ideal setup for these is to actually run them into a cistern or some kind of a tank, and then gravity feed it to your house. That way these things can pump, all night if necessary. They can pump over 1,000 gallons in one night, so they can fill up your tank quite nicely. Plus, if you pump them all day long, there's another 1,000 gallons, and so realistically you can easily get 2,000 gallons of these every single day out of these pumps. And but I run mine into a pressure tank, like I've already said previously, and it seems to work okay. Now a gallon a minute turns into more like a gallon and a half after I've lost all my pressure, which happens when I'm watering my garden, because I just turn it full on, goes into my drip, and just drains my pressure tank down to nothing, but then continues to pump, but at a little bit higher rate because it's not trying to pump it into my pressure tank. And I managed to water my garden. I just leave it on for several hours on each circuit, and so I use it pretty hard. I water, every single day. The pump's running for hours every single day. So, but one of these days I will install a tank and I'll do it correctly. But for 75 bucks, you can't beat it. Like a SureFlow, they're really excellent pumps. Like, I'd recommend that to anybody. But do you have 800 bucks just to plunk down on one of those puppies? Heck, I've got 5 of these babies for less than I could buy a SureFlow for. Honestly, the SureFlows, they last for years and years. I mean, I think we ran one for 6 years in California. They recommend rebuilding them after 3. And I mean, we ran that thing like a rented mule. Like, it was on all the time. Every night it would pump almost all night long and almost all day long throughout the summer months when we were watering, and when everybody was taking showers and doing their thing, and we were using the water to spray the fields. So we're using a lot of water, and the whole ranch ran off of one of these things. If you're just a constant flow of water, you'd be amazed how much. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you want the ideal system, you have to have the reservoir to be able to, when your non-peak hours, you're pumping into your reservoir, and you're saving all that water for use during your peak hours, and that's ideal. And it doesn't use any electricity. Your batteries hardly know this thing's even turned on. I went to a regular well pump for a while, for several years, and I just finally took it back out and I just reinstalled this thing. It was so hard on the inverter and the batteries. I mean, when that thing would kick on, my inverter would beep every single time. And I can run this thing, and like I said, I mean, winter, summer, it doesn't matter. It's not draining my batteries significantly, you know. So I really love them. So it's a great way. It's a great way to get started inexpensively. If you have a well less than 200 feet deep, you know, you can just purchase one of these, 75 bucks, install it yourself. You don't need to pay the thousands of dollars to have a professional installer come out and put a well pump in your well, and it'll suit you just fine for off-grid use. Now, you know, city folks, they need a lot more water than that. They want like 60 psi, and you know, out of a 5/8 hose, and that's great. You know, I wish I had that too, but I don't. And the area that we live in is semi-arid here in Montana, and so I've gotten by just fine with my system, and it's a great way to go, and I would highly recommend anybody to use the same exact thing. So that's my take on these pumps, and you guys do with it what you will. And you know, if you guys like my content, give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. That's really appreciated. Like, you can't even believe. It helps my channel out, helps me to grow, and helps me to keep making these videos. We'll see you on the next one.